Hey guys, Josh here at House Guitars, and I wanted to shoot a quick video for you today showing how I bend sides for an acoustic guitar using a Fox style bending machine and heating blankets. So this will be just a quick overview, but I'm going to try and hit all the key details that you need to keep in mind as you go through this process. So let's dive into it. So let's start with the bending machine itself. This is what's known as a Fox style bending machine, and I actually purchased this machine and the heating blankets from Blues Creek Guitars in the US. John Hall is the guy there, great guy to deal with. I bought lots of stuff from him over the years. And one thing that's a little different about my setup is that I use two silicone heating blankets. So what you see here, these orange silicone heating blankets are the flexible heat element that provides the heat for bending, and under the heating blankets are a pair of spring steel slats which are used to support the sides during the bending process. A lot of people, a lot of companies who sell these machines just include one blanket as standard, but when I was getting started, someone suggested that they use two blankets as it provides even heat to both top and bottom of the side. And since you have inside and outside bends, it seemed like a good idea to me, and I've always been very happy with the results. So I'd recommend you consider that, although it's not entirely necessary. As far as the rest of the equipment goes, under here I have a food thermometer. That's going to be important to watch the temperature of the blankets as everything's heating up. In here I have a mold or a pattern for my OM shape, and that's what I'm going to be bending today, is some rosewood sides for an OM. Over here I've got temperature controllers and timer unit for the heat blankets. Okay, so let's just take a minute here and talk about preparing the sides for bending. So what I have here are some Indian rosewood sides, which are going to become an OM guitar. And the first thing I've done is thickness the sides. And for all my sides, I am bending at between 2 and 2.3 millimeters, or 80 to 90 thousandths of an inch, depending on what measuring system you like to use. And my general rule is if it's an easy to bend wood, Indian rosewood, cherry, walnut, myrtle wood, then I can go a little over the 2 millimeters or the 80 thou mark. If it's a difficult to bend wood, ebonies, some of the other dense woods, then I'm going to have it right around 2 millimeters or 80 thousandths of an inch. So these sides have been thicknessed to just a little over 2 millimeters. And what I've done is marked the layout for how I want the bends to take place. So you always want to have the book match facing out. So that's going to be the outer part of the sides. And I always like to use triangles when I'm marking either my sides or my plates, and it's a simple system. I put a triangle on there. The triangle is always going to point to the neck, and the portion, the edge where the triangle is always going to be the top surface. So the top of the guitar is going to get put on this surface here. You do want to make sure you are aware of how you lay out your sides, because you can, if you don't do a good job at marking them, or you're not careful when you place them in the bending machine, you could bend a side inside out or something like that, and that's a major pain if you have to try and correct it later. One other thing, if I'm bending difficult woods, mahoganies, anything, I will use this veneer softener, and this is the Super Soft brand. I just happened to buy a gallon of this about 14 years ago because I heard someone else recommend it, and I've been working on that gallon ever since. And if it's a difficult to bend wood or a figured wood, what I will do is just take my little spray bottle. I will spritz both sides of each side, wrap it up in a clear garbage bag or a piece of plastic, and let it sit overnight. The wood will absorb the veneer softener. That will loosen up the wood fibers so that the wood will bend more easily. And then as the sides are getting bent, the effects of the veneer softener totally disappear. So it's got no long-term negative effect on the wood. So I just use a very light amount of moisture for my sides. I'll just spray probably just, well, I'll spray a little bit of water on both sides and then put the side in the bending machine. One more layout thing I forgot to point out. This line here is where the waist is going to be, and that's the reference part for the positioning in the bending machine. So if this is your first time bending in a mold and you need to locate the waist, easy thing you could do is just throw a piece of tape in your mold, providing you're bending with a mold, mark where each end is, and then mark where the lowest point of the waist is, and then figure out where you're going to position that along the side. And you want to position the waist mainly so that you'll have a little bit of wood on either end. And what I've actually done here is I've biased the waist more towards the neck end, and that's because there's just a little ripple in the side here, and I don't want that ripple to be on or to be too close to the tight bend of the waist. So I've moved everything in this direction just to move things away a little bit from that ripple. Indian rosewood bends so well, it's not going to be an issue, but those are the kind of things you want to watch for. Any knots, irregularities, or anything. Move those into the lower bout of the side when you're laying out your sides for bending. Okay, so just before I put the side into the bending machine, I thought I would show you just, like I said, you don't need very much water. I just really lightly, I'm not even like totally covering or totally soaking the wood. And there are certain woods, especially mahogany and stuff, you get too much water, you can cause rippling, and that becomes a major problem. So just a little bit, both sides, that'll do. Okay, so before I actually fire up the blankets and start the bending process, I just want to very quickly go over the positioning of everything in the bending machine. First, we have the bending sandwich, we'll call it. In my case, it's a heating blanket, spring steel, then the side, another piece of spring steel, and then the heating blanket. And what I did with the reference mark for the side, or sorry, for the waist, I transferred that reference mark onto the side. And for my bending machine here, the tightest point of the waist falls right in the middle of this slot. And so you won't be able to see it on the video, but the pencil mark I put on the side of the rosewood is positioned directly in the middle of the mark there. The other thing is that everything in the bending machine is pulled tight up against the inside of this plate, and that is going to ensure that the side actually gets bent square. If everything is not pulled up tight and touching, then you end up bending your side skewed, and that's going to show up when you take it out and you try and lay it on your bench. You'll see that it's actually got a twist in it, so make sure it's pulled tight forward. I've got these clamps just to hold the blankets up to the side while it heats up, a couple little ones here that I'll be pulling off, and I'm going to go ahead and fire it up now, and then kind of just explain the process as I walk through it from there. Right, so I've got the blankets turned on, and right now they are turned up to high while everything heats up. And the magic temperature I'm looking for is 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the boiling point of water. Now, some guys I know get really picky about the temperatures for different woods. I've never found that to be an issue. Part of that may be just the benefit of having two heat blankets, but I'm looking for 240, and when I hit that point, that's where I'm really going to start bending. When I position the side in there, I have just a little bit of tension on the shoe here at the waist. I will just gradually tighten that up a bit. We're now at 200 degrees. My little thermometer here keeps me well informed. I'm going to pull these little clamps out. I don't need them there. Everything is properly supported and tight. We're at 210 degrees, and so I'm just very slowly starting to tighten the waist. You'll know when you hit 240 in that there will be a little bit of steam coming off the sides. And you don't want to take the bend too quickly, but you also don't want to go too slowly, or all your water could evaporate before you complete the bends. So we've now hit 240 degrees. What I'm going to do is back the temperature down a little bit. It's going to gradually climb a bit more. I don't really want it going up past 270, 280. I don't need it hotter than that. And all that will do is potentially scorch the sides, which I don't want to do. Now, like I said, rosewood bends super easily, so you can bend it a little quicker than some other woods. If I was bending mahogany, I would go very slow with the waist, maybe just a quarter, half turn every few seconds, because mahogany and some other woods will actually kind of ripple a bit. You'll get kind of crimp marks in the tight bends if you go too quickly. So I'm just keeping an eye on my temperature as I go here. I kind of just play with the dials just to make sure I'm staying in that proper range. Continue to make sure that everything's staying lined up. It should stay lined up once you start the bend, and my pencil mark is directly in the center where it should be. So I'm pretty close to having the waist down where I need it. I'm now going to take these support pieces, which will be used to bend the side down the upper and lower bout, and I've just got, it looks like a little bit more to go with the waist, a little bit more than I thought. Keep an eye on that temperature. Alright, so I've got the waist down snug, and what I'm going to do is I brace just one arm on the top there, the other arm I slowly pull the side down around the lower bout. I would go a little slower if it was a harder to bend wood, but this is rosewood again. Oh, my temperature is getting a little carried away there. Okay, so I'm going to come around. Yeah, definitely want to be wearing gloves. It's too easy to burn yourself if you don't. Highly recommend a good pair of leather gloves. Okay, so this bends a little bit tighter here. I'm just going to slowly work it down. There we have it. I can pull the last clamp off. Okay, so I'm going to dial my temperature back a bit so it's just in the range I want it to be. I want to make sure it's not continuing to rise. I'm going to let this sit for 3 minutes and let the just the moisture cook out of the side. I will then let it cool down for an hour, and then what I will actually do is fire the blankets back up, bring it up to temperature, and then let it cool a second time. And I find that just really helps in setting the bend so that I can pull it out and it will basically stay there. Whereas if you don't let it cool down, you pull it out too quickly, you can get a lot of spring back, which is going to, you're just going to have to deal with that before you put the guitar in the mold. I would suggest if you are going to walk away and leave your bending machine, which I'm not going to do because I'm right here already, but if you're going to walk away and let it cook, set yourself a timer. Make sure you have your heating blankets on some kind of timer that will cut it off. Otherwise, it's too easy just to forget your blanket, and you could ruin a side or cause a fire and burn your shop down, something terrible like that. But otherwise, that's the process. If you have any questions, throw a comment down there. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Subscribe to my YouTube channel to see more guitar-related videos, building, repair, behind-the-scenes luthier stuff. And thanks for watching.